Anthropometry, designed by Alphonse Bertillon, began in 1890 and lasted approximately 20 years before being replaced by fingerprint identification. Alphonse's father, Louis Bertillon, a famous French physician and anthropologist, largely influenced Alphonse's knowledge and interest in the human skeletal system. Even an understanding of fingerprints had not yet been well developed at that time. Alphonse Bertillon proposed a method of identification in 1879 using anthropological body measurement. In addition to physical measurements, Alphonse recorded physical descriptors of the person like hair and eye color, including any unusual markings on the body like tattoos and scars. This was known as portrait parle, or a speaking portrait that described many personal characteristics. Lastly, Alphonse included frontal and side view photographs of each person which we recognize today as mugshots. And now, Bertillon was promoted to head a newly formed Department of Judicial Identify for the Parts Police due to its success. Anthropometry and Bertillonage spread throughout the world with the United States adopting it in 1887 and Great Britain in 1894. Portrait parle can be defined as a rigorous system for verbal description of physical characteristics of the subjects. It is based on the Bertillon method of criminal identification by measurements of the human body and is still in practice today to some extent. A distinctive description of every feature of the face and head are especially valuable for investigation, especially when a set of the suspect's fingerprints is not available in his file. In order to recognize individuals who were repeatedly arrested, Bertillon developed means by which portraits could be sorted by common morphological characteristics, the specific shapes of the different parts of the face, and thus an individual's prior photo could be found without having to resort to browsing through large collection of portraits. This classification is known as the portrait parle or spoken portrait. Now, the history of portrait parle. In 1882, Alphonse Bertillon, also called father of scientific detection, said that anthropology could be invoked to aid in the sight recognition and identification of criminals employing these methods of scientific description. He worked out a system of identification utilizing 11 skeletal measurements which are practically unchanged after maturity and are not affected by increases or loss of weight. Alphonse Bertillon, 1853-1914. Forensic odontology. The new dimension in dental analysis. It is a branch of forensic sciences uses the skills of the dentist in personal identification during mass calamities, sexual assault, and child abuse, to name a few. This branch, not a stranger to many, has been growing tenfold in its potential and its ability to bring the forlorn to justice where a dental remains in the only available evidence. This is important just like the other branches. Forensic odontology is proper handling, examination, and evaluation of dental evidence which will be presented in the interest of justice. It may be derived from the teeth, the age, and identification of the person to whom the teeth may belong. Let's go to its historical background. Well documented evidence to the use of teeth for identification began AD with Agrippina and Lollia Pauline case. It was the first use of dental identification where there is a record. The first forensic identification in India started in where Jai Chand, a great Indian monarchy, was destroyed by Muhammad's army, and Jai Chand Raja of Kanauj was murdered and he was identified by his police. It also plays an important role when identification of remains of deceased person is skeletonized, decomposed, burned, or dismembered, and is invalid by visual or fingerprint methods. Because teeth must be the last thing to decompose, set aside the bones. Forensic serology is the application of the study of blood, semen, saliva, and other body fluids to legal matters. The field generally is comprised of the detection of enzymes and antigens as in the identification of seminal stains or blood typing, ABO secretor status, and DNA typing. The serology section of a forensic laboratory may deal with any or all of the following. The first, blood typing, characterization of unknown stains, blood spatter analysis for crime reconstruction, paternity testing, semen identification in sexual assault cases. The last, DNA typing for identification of victims and suspects. The composition of blood is a mixture of many components: cells, inorganic substances, salts, enzymes, spatter, protein. 55% of blood content is plasma, mostly water and substances dissolved in it. Most of the solid materials by weight are cells, red blood cells, RBCs, erythrocytes, white blood cells, leukocytes. Sometimes we can be deceived by other stains, knowing it's a blood but it's not. It is blood or not. Presumptive tests rely on hemoglobin's ability to catalyze the oxidation of certain reagents, usually resulting in a color change. We have two different types of stains, the visible stains and the invisible stains. Invisible stains we have Kastle-Meyer solution of phenolphthalein is applied to suspected blood stain followed by hydrogen peroxide. A bright pink color indicates the presence of blood. The other one is leucomalachite green, where same procedures as KM produces blue-green color in the presence of blood. In invisible stains, we have luminoil used for large areas where blood is suspected but not darkness, and photographed quickly. In serology. There's a thing that we call positives, because blood is the only material that will cause presumptive test reagents to change color, because horseradish and potatoes can also give positive results, but these are unlikely to be at a crime scene though. Forensic anthropology can be described as the analysis of human remains for the medico-legal purpose of establishing identity. It is a multidisciplinary endeavor that applies the knowledge of biological anthropology and human osteology to cases where human remains are skeletonized, or where a detailed understanding of the growth and development, morphology, or reactive norms of the human body can assist other disciplines in positive identification. As such, it is perhaps best placed as a subdiscipline within the wider practice of forensic human identification, having applicability to both the living and the dead. Anthropologists are routinely called upon to assist in the identification of individuals whose remains are severely decomposed, burned, disrupted, mutilated, or otherwise rendered difficult to recognize. Their services have been of particular value in three main areas: I. Investigation resulting from homicide, unexplained natural deaths, accidents, and mass fatalities. 2. Non-criminal events resulting in multiple deaths arising from natural catastrophes. And 3. War crimes investigation and genocides. However, the anthropologists may also be called upon to assist in the assessment of the living, providing confirmation of identifiers, such as chronological age for the purposes of judicial accountability, immigration, or asylum status. And thus, the use of the forensic anthropology, we can't deny how important it is in the field of identification. DNA fingerprinting was only developed 2 decades ago. In the short time since its invention, DNA fingerprinting not only transformed criminal forensics and judicial system around the world, but has also revolutionized fields of biology ranging from evolutionary studies to cancer detection and treatment. Amazingly enough, DNA fingerprinting technology will soon enable doctors to detect as few as 10 cancerous cells in an entire lymph node, and will allow them to determine whether a woman who had breast cancer is a risk for relapse. In evolutionary studies, DNA fingerprinting has even traced the origin of all mankind to Africa.